So the other side, the EDO considerations, again, it's about capacity, membership, getting involved. And I think that's the biggest portion of it. Where EDOs have to work and get into is being able to get to those industry days, being able to talk to the associations, and be able to say, this is our capacity, these are suppliers, we want to work like this, and then being able to govern that dialogue. There's not enough of that dialogue to happen with the associations. The database, oh yeah, they asked me to show you this. Okay, so I will basically show you how simple it is. So we created this one out of necessity. We're improving this one to now be able to pivot businesses for what we call the phase 3 recovery. And what I'll do is I'll stop sharing for a moment and I'll reshare. Okay, this is live, by the way. So if something goes up, I'm gonna have to call my technical guy and scream at him. So I'll give you an example. We decided to use a commodity-based database, and there's a backend to this, by the way. And the EDOs or the concierge has the backend, so they can pull out reports and they're able to turn around and identify which suppliers are available and so on and so forth, and give that to industry and say, when the industry comes back and says, I got to build an ITB, but I don't know where all the suppliers are. I can't identify capacity. You could pull it. The concierge could pull out a report and say, here's all my construction people. Here's all my transportation people. And say, please contact me. You need some help to contact them? I'll be able to help you do that. So that's that real facilitation. Because at the end of the day, the concierge job is to either spend corporate money, make it as easy as possible to spend corporate money, or make it as easy as possible to spend government money. And that's getting the data and then being able to help someone to find a supplier. So we use the same principle along that, looking for masks. I hope you all can see this, right? Give me a thumbs up if you can. Okay, you can see this on my screen?
Yep.
Okay, true. I was a little bit worried there. Okay, so masks, simple as that. So I'm a buyer, whether I'm corporate or I'm a government buyer, I can find all the suppliers who are providing masks. And here I notice I got 89, and what it does is it shows you where they're located in Canada. Now you see this company here. The chances are that they have an office based in the United States as well. And I tried to explain that because the government came back and said, hey, wait a second, you got companies that are in California and stuff like that. I said, yes, because we have the J Treaty, and it's not unheard of that an Indigenous business has 2 offices, maybe in the United States and so on and so forth, because we have green cards and so on and so forth. And that sort of makes sense at the very end of the day, but also opens up a lot of opportunity to do exporting, so along those lines. And one of the things that the United States has a big shortage of is PPE during the crisis. So it made sense. So if you look at it from this standpoint, I can basically find out in Edmonton, this particular company here, and I'm able to click down and drill down on First Canadian Medical Supplies, view their profile, and find out what they do. They have disposable masks, gowns, stuff like that. I have a contact, and I know this person is CANDO certified. So I'm a business that's, I say, okay, I don't have to question whether they're Indigenous or not. They've already been certified by an Indigenous business. And this company also appears on the Indigenous database for ISK as well. So that's that reciprocating kind of a sharing of information that we've been doing with ISK. And I can contact this person. This person did not leave a business contact, but they left their information. So I can also drill down on their website on who they are, and what kind of pharmacies that they have. It's as simple as that. Because the viewpoint of our looking at the database was, how can I give as much information for the client to be able to buy something, at the very end of the day. And if they have the concierge client, they're able to basically, basically be able to drill down on. So I'm just going to back up here on a concierge here, and it's not working. That's why I hate live demos. I gotta talk to that. But normally what happens is when you, let me go back to masks here. I talked to Dan, so I'll make a note. When you click on this button here, a pop-up comes up with a name of the concierge who can help you identify that. And you can, as you can see, there's many of them. Let's see this. Here it is. Okay, so the Indigenous person is I was the acting concierge for that. I'm handing it over to the associations, but they can click on me to make sure that I'm able to, able to connect with somebody to help them expedite that sale or that contact. So that's a little bit about that. Anybody any questions so far about the database?
I believe we have one from Angela Pratt. She's asking if it's free to access the Indigenous medical suppliers information. So what you just showed us.
Yeah, no, absolutely free. So to register, I'll push yourself on there. Again, sorry, share my screen again. Not the screen. I want the screen here. Share. So it's very easy to register yourself. So you're going to click in here and you just start answering questions. It's a Google form. That's your first intake form. And that one gets pushed into the back end. And Breezy will probably call you or somebody will call you and they'll start the process. So if you're existing already on PSIB database, you would basically automatically get published, because if you're good for PSIB, you're good for CANDO. So that kind of thing. But if you're not there, CANDO will help you get onto the PSIB database. And then when that process and going through the vetting and everything else like that, and help you get through that, whether you're a joint venture or you're a digital supplier, help you get onto the database. And then when PSIB publishes you, we publish you at the very end on the database. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be you want to be published on PSIB. If you don't want to be published on the government database, you can say no. I don't know why you would, but let's pretend you don't want to, because you don't have anything to do with the Canadian government, but you want to sell your medical your wares to the rest of the free world. You can choose that, but it's going to follow the same criteria as being a PSIB supplier, because that's the vetting process that needs to go on to have an Indigenous business. What's important about the database is you want to have authoritative data of suppliers, and that's the integrity of it, to make sure that whether you're let's pretend it's a contract with Walmart, that you're dealing with an Indigenous supplier at the very end of the day, because Walmart has diversity spend, or a government department. So that authoritative data becomes very important. So this is the first step. So it's right directly on it. Or you can contact the CANDO, and they'll put you in contact with a concierge, and they can help you go through that. But we want to make it as easy as possible. There's 500 different businesses on that right now. And what we're going to do in the future is we're going to focus on the profiles and bringing those businesses back to what we call the phase 3 recovery, which is one point in time you're doing marketing for products. Now you're doing and then you're doing PPE. Well, how do I bring you back to marketing for products? So that looking at that perspective. I'll stop sharing right now. Did I have anything else?
There was a follow-up question actually from Angela. She just asked if anyone can access the list. Like, can I just go on that?
Anybody.
See it?
Yeah, it's in the public domain. They can access your list. What we're doing is we pushed it out to corporate Canada. We also pushed it out to all the government buyers through PAC. So this list is known by about 10,000 government buyers in departments. And just to give you perspective on the low dollar value contracts, low dollar value directed contracts could be for services. For products is 25,000. For services, it could be 40,000. Directed contracts, all tax in. And I think with $5,000 for credit cards. So when you look at that low dollar value, it's a 10,000 credit cards that are out there at 500,000. That's a chunk of change, in terms of marketing. the marketing available. So what happens is we have a newsletter. So new supplier comes on, we push it out in a newsletter. It goes out to all those buyers, at the very end of the day. Some of them, if we could get to know the buying end of it, we can probably even do more directed. But when we get an opportunity, we try to push it to, let's say if it's transportation, with Canada Post, there's a big one out there. There's about 7 or 8 top tip for those who are transportation. We'll try to push out, you're not getting just masks, but you're a transportation person. You're probably going to click, and eventually you're going to just, close them all and then lose that opportunity. So we're trying to figure out a way to actually get directed opportunities to your Indigenous businesses.
Another follow-up question. Do you know why it's called a co-op?
Oh, co-op, yeah. That's basically, it's as it stands for, is a cooperative, that kind of thing. So it's a collection of different suppliers at the very end of the day. I read a report that's really interesting. One of the things that and why was a co-op? Because it was different organizations working together as well. And because it was different organizations, the organizations, we're encouraging the organizations to continue working with their members. You guys, Jedi knows its membership, more than, let's say, another organization that's Toronto centric or Montreal centric or so on and so forth. So it made more sense to have more grassroots community involvement with the EDOs to help support their suppliers at the very end of the day. Especially on a first day basis, if you're if you're an EDO and David, and you're able to talk to customers about David. So you're selling David, and his business and capability. So that's what the cooperative model. Okay.
Thank you, David. We have Jonas Nash. You can actually unmute yourself if you want to ask a question.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. I was just wondering, I've been in business for 4.5 years now, and I've been looking for Aboriginal or Indigenous workers to work with me, and I find it sort of hard. And like how many actual tradespeople are in this certain sector in Canada? Like how do we know how many? We'll say welders. I'm a welder. How many welders are in that are in Canada now that are Aboriginal?
Okay.
How many millwrights? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
How many?
yeah.
All that. You know what I mean? How are we going to know that?
Yeah. Okay. So good question. Very, very good question, because it comes up a lot. So just so I can situate myself a little bit, Jonas, what business are you in?
I have a welding company.
You have a welding company, and who your clients are? Like, it was just a sector. Like, is it oil and gas? Is it, or is it?
I don't do no oil and gas. I do a little bit of everything for the community, and it's just a lot of everything. So
Okay.
whatever comes into me is what I do.
Okay. So you eat what you kill. You kill what you eat. You eat what you kill. Yeah. So,
I've been in this industry for quite a while, and I know quite a few people. So
yeah. Well, that's the basis. You do business with people you know. So one of the things is that was our first problem. We started our business because of that 33%. Government said you have 33% of your employees need to be. So we had a trouble. How do you find, because we're in IT, right? In 2006, how do you find business analysts that are Indigenous? How do you find programmers that are Indigenous and so on? So it was just not in our it was not data that was available. In fact, there was nobody, that kind of thing, especially HR. So what we decided to do, we decided to work with the ISETS holders, and we created, an internship program where we actually took profit from our consulting practice and actually wage subsidy dollars when we got them. Under the Harper years, they're pretty skinny, but under the Trudeau years, it's pretty, it's not as bad. But we put those two things together. We started crystallizing these resources. We started to work with the different associations. We started working with McGill. We started working with University of Ottawa, York University, to start building business analysts. And then we ended up creating 54. I stopped counting after 54, but they ended up working a lot of for our customers and so on and so forth. But our customers started like that because they started pulling them off my payroll to their payroll. And long story short is we realized we had to identify that. Now, the challenge where I'm advising you, Jonas, is maybe to work with the EDOs, because the EDOs can push the question, and they have the ISET holders to either create that ecosystem for you to start hiring at the very end of the day. And this is where I started to work with the ISET holders, because I'm working with the represented groups and Indigenous as well. And what they're doing is they're offsetting my risk as well, because I'm getting those wage subsidy dollars to bring on an Indigenous resource and then be able to train them up and become part of that ecosystem. But they count towards my head count, and they become my next best employee at the very end of the day, or my customer's next best employee, at that.
Yeah.
And then, but I get that. So what it is, Jonas, I'm encouraging you to create that ecosystem for those welders and those opportunities, but working with the EDO and working with your ISET holders. That's your question?
Yeah. That
Yeah.
helped a lot. Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
Thanks so much, Jonas. Thanks, David, for
Yep.
answering that. Great. Up next, we have Frank, and it has his hand raised. I just want to mention we have about 10 minutes left, so we're going to try to.
Okay.
questions.
I'll try not to be long-winded. Yes. No.
Hi, David. This has been a really great session. I really appreciate your insights and your history with all of this. I've got a question that I think is very similar to Jonas's question. If you think about sole proprietors who, by definition are not incorporated, how do they position themselves to be able to participate in these procurement opportunities? And, they could be people who are going to who intend to stay sole proprietors, or they may cross the bridge to incorporate and become a small business. Maybe they'll move to a couple of employees, maybe to 5. But in many cases, I don't see a lot of the folks growing very large. And so I see a real big gap in sole proprietors and very small businesses being able to participate in these procurement opportunities. I'm just interested in your perspective on this. And by the way, I may follow up directly with you for a further discussion if you don't mind.
Oh, no problem. No, it's a pleasure. No, that is a good question. What I'm seeing is, like, if you look at SAP Fieldglass, Fieldglass is a new application that is dealing with the sole proprietors, the 1-person shop, the 5-person shop, and so on and so forth, where big corporations now can just give a mandate of a small mandate, a time box mandate for a sole proprietor to do research, because a lot of the sole proprietors are professionals. I find they're doing research. They've worked for government before, and they've kind of said, "Nah, I don't want to work for the man anymore. Or I want to I want to work within my community." So they're going from contract to contract. One of the big things that are happening now is the gig economy. For those who are the uninitiated, a gig is like a band, right? You go from stage to stage to stage, as a roadshow. So there's a whole thing about the gig economy, and I think industry is picking up on that now and being able to say, you know what, I can actually don't have to put this guy on my payroll, and I save all the payroll taxes and all the rest of this kind of stuff. So I see the economy kind of trending to the gig economy. I see the technology starting to be able to support it. Where I don't see on the Indigenous front is enough knowledge around what is the gig economy, and how do I position myself to my suppliers or my constituency to take part in that gig economy. And one of the things I was thinking about with the EDOs or the organizations is that they can facilitate that by working with corporate Canada, at the very end of the day, saying, you know what, I'll be able to, give you Indigenous suppliers, there's no, somehow mom and pop shops got a bad name. Mom and pop shops are really damn good. They live a good quality of life. Some of them are at home living and raising their kids and everything else like that, and still making tons of money, or they have a cottage industry. So I'm a big proponent of mom and pop shops. So at the very end of the day, because they're adding a lot to their communities. And this is where the trending is to be able to support those smaller businesses, those people that are owning a truck or owning stuff like that. And they can have 3 or 4 customers, especially if they're working in, like let's say a logging company or so on and so forth. So, I hope I kind of answered your question in that we're already trending that way. We're moving away. I think companies are trying to figure out a way to support that. And it's incumbent of the EDOs and our national organizations to be able to support that kind of gig economy, which we were always doing in the indigenous economy. Does that answer your question? Sorry, Frank?
I think it answers part of it. The other side of it is to ensure that the large procurement opportunities carve out a component for sole proprietors and small businesses. I'm thinking of the Science Center. I'm thinking of any large project. It's easy to see the, $1 million, $2 million, $5 million, $20 million, $100 million contracts going out there. What about the $10,000, $15,000, $25,000 contracts, right? So it's probably more a question for them than it is for you, but it's a structural thing.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right, Frank. Frank, the short answer to that is this is where the can-dos of the world, the Jedis of the world need to get engaged in that conversation. Because right now, I look at government, they're doing low dollar value contracts, right now. And you look at that and they're saying that low dollar value contracts are going to be the big catalyst towards the 5%. Because, 80% of Indigenous businesses are less than 5 people, at the very end of the day. But where I think the dialogue really has to happen is with the organizations actually figuring out a way and just not pushing for it, but also giving answers to it, and then saying, okay, we're going to create a process where I have all my suppliers, the ones, the twosies, the sole proprietors, and then being able to bandy them up together to respond to these particular opportunities. And it might be even billing for them. Or finding those opportunities. I think that's where the database and technology comes into play for making.
That's great. I want to make sure there's time for more questions, but I will follow up. We'll have a further discussion on this if you don't mind.
That was a great. No problem. I'd love to have that.
All right,
Thomas, I believe.
Yeah, Thomas, you can go. I actually got confused. I thought we were done at 2:30, but we do have 15 minutes, so we go until 2:45. So we're still good for questions. So Thomas, you can go ahead.
Okay, good.
Sorry about that.
Thank you, David. It's very good, great information. Love it. I know Jonas talked about, hiring Indigenous people, and I know that we have multiple equipment. Right now we have a mechanic. We're ready to expand into making more mechanical stuff. I'm looking for young guys that are just coming out of the trades, and I feel like it's difficult to find Indigenous people. So what you were saying a bit earlier is, do we have to kind of create those opportunities ourselves, find those people ourselves, or there's something out there that can help me find work for? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. So are you a business, or are you the company?
We're a business. We're doing contracting and mechanical work. We're expanding a lot of stuff. We're still a small business, but we're still getting good contracts. Well, I saw one on the sides this morning. There are new mills. There was the wharf with all the rocks. We did that with a partnership with a venture, actually, with the rock. And so it's cool, but keep going.
Okay. Well, I think there's 2 approaches that you can have. Again, it really depending on the area you're in and so on and so forth. I think where industry fails and government fails, they don't meet the community where they're at. So if you're, let's say, hey, listen, I got people that are just coming out of high school, they're not even in the trades and so on and so forth. Well, you know what? At the end of the day, we need to create an internship program. We need to create a journeyman program. I got to work with the union and be able to do that. So that's where I'll be starting to have the conversation, Tom. That Thomas or Tom? Sorry. Either or. Okay. So Tom, that's where I would be having that particular conversation. Now, where it becomes interesting again is okay, I'm going to go to the ISIS holder. I'm going to say, okay, I need some funding to create a journeyman program. And they can give you, it's really interesting because they can give you 75% of your cost you know? So what do you like? You turn around and look at that. And if you got a prime contract, let's say you're a prime contractor, the prime contractor is SNC Lavalin, you know? So let's, you know, that kind of thing. And they're looking for those points that they can say, are we doing capacity building? Are we building Indigenous businesses? Are we doing, and you're coming with this nice raw bow wrapped solution saying, I'm going to work with the ISIS holder. I'm going to create a journeyman. I got my union on board, you know, all the rest of this kind of stuff. And now I created an ecosystem. And the other thing is, one of the things I learned very early on, because when I created my program, everybody was swinging for the fences. Give me 100 business analysts, project managers. I want them all that are Indigenous. I said, I can't find one. You know, so and we're not interested. You know, I was saying, listen, why don't you go for the bunts and singles? Let's start with one. And that's going to begat 2, and then that's going to begat 4, and so on and so forth, and zero in on that. And really take a long-term view of that, because at the end of the day, you know, this is not swinging for the fences. You know, this is a bunts and singles game. And, you know, Tom, I'd love to have a conversation with you. If you do that, I'd love to have a conversation with you 10 years from now. Because all those guys, and this is what one thing that I learned was, out of those 54 success stories that we had, they became sort of like building internship programs within the companies that they were doing, because they took the model and said, hey, it worked for me, I'm going to bring it to my company. I'll give you a case in point. There was one girl in Ganawage. Ganawage is just across the river from me, you know, literally. I'm not joking, 50 minutes from downtown. She didn't even want to cross the river. Okay, so she was like, no, I'm going to get that band job and I'm going to go work at it, you know, stuff like that. And I said, but Jody, how long is that line for that particular band accounting job that you want? And do you know the chief? And she goes, no. I said, come across the river, you know, come across and work in Montreal. And she finally she did. We put her into Accenture. And eventually Accenture brought her in. She was supposed to be on a 12-month internship. She was gone in 9 months. They loved her, you know, and now she's, fast forward 8 years later, she's like the global talent manager for the Americas. She takes care of South America. She takes care of not South America. She takes care of Central America. She takes care of the United States and Canada. And she's the and then she's got a team on all three, that kind of thing. And that's a girl who didn't want to come across the river, you know, to work for corporate Canada. And there's an article written about her on that. I have like 54 success stories of change management within the community. And that's what I'm saying, Tom. You have to kind of look at it bunts and singles and so on and so forth. And I don't know, out of those 54 success stories, how many of them they brought on. Because my recommendation was, I said, don't thank me. Now you have it's incumbent of you to bring 3 more and then pass on that 3 more, you know, to that kind of thing. And right now, there's such a ground. When I started in 2006, there was not very much dialogue about Indigenous human resource professionals. And the ones that are going back to school were the women, and they went into human resources. And that was because they got their friends talking about their careers and so on and so forth. And the same thing with business analysts and IT. A lot of them went back and they were part of the, you know, working for the NGOs, and they managed to transfer their careers into IT to become a project manager or a project control officer. And it's the same applies for you. So that's what I'm trying to encourage, is to create that ecosystem, you know, of welders and trade professionals, because it is needed, very much so, especially for the young men. Because it's the women that are going back to school, you know, so.
Becoming the breadwinners, I think.
Yeah,
But,
the breadwinners.
Could I just ask one question to Thomas? Thomas, are you based in New Brunswick?
Yeah, we're in Ill River Bar.
Okay. If you ever need help trying to find, you know, tradespeople, things like that, always feel free to reach out to Jedi. That is, you know, things that we help coordinate. We can help work, you know, we have networks with our employment training officers or economic development officers. And that's what we do. We help with training initiatives, you know, different things like that. So if there's anything that we could help support your guys' business, feel free to reach out.
Yeah, there's a strong business case for it. And if you don't want to, come and see me if you want to say, hey, how do I structure this business case? You know, I'll be very happy to help you out there.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Dan. I was actually thinking of you, so I'm glad you came in right at the perfect time. I do want to mention we have until 2:35, so we'd say about 3 minutes. So we have one more question. We'll try to fit with that one in, and then we'll have the closing prayer with the closing remarks as well. So this is from Laura Maynard, and she asks, any common gaps in skills / capacity amongst Indigenous SMEs signing up to your database that are seeking to sell to the government?
Oh, sorry, I missed that part of the question. Can you repeat that question? I'm sorry.
Yeah, so Laura's asking if there's any common gaps in any of the skills or the capacity amongst Indigenous small, medium-sized enterprises signing up to the database that are seeking to sell to the government.
Yeah, it's interesting. Ironically, there's not. I don't really believe there's any gaps. As I put up a slide in the first discussion on the panel discussion, we're all over the place, that kind of thing. So you were able to find construction and professionals and so on. So we're doing research. I think the most common gap is, being visible. That kind of thing. So how do you get visibility? How do you get in front of the organized, and this is where Indigenous businesses, and this is incumbent on Indigenous business. And I hate to say that, you can't build it and they shall come, that kind of thing. It's because then they're playing in the kind of like that Fields of Dreams. But this is where, Indigenous businesses have to learn what levers that they have. Okay, I have the EDO. Okay, I'm going to lean on my EDO to kind of get me in front of those customers. I have ISC. They have the PSAB coordinators. Or PSA coordinators. Okay, I got to get in front of that, and so on and so forth. I think what I think is really missing in this whole thing is some sort of playbook, that, Indigenous businesses need in terms of being able to say, okay, what are the tricks of the trade that I can, I can do? Maybe that's a project, that's out there. Being able to put together this, this playbook, and working with government, working with corporate Canada, being able to do that. How do I get myself onto an ITB? That kind of thing. And I think that's really where the crux of the issue is Indigenous businesses being able to find those opportunities. And I think that's where the gap is. What's the role of the EDOs? I think the EDOs are starting to really understand how much power that they have, within the marketplace under this new environment. And finally, the other side of it, the national organizations and one of the biggest challenges with the national organizations, they don't work together. They should work together. In fact, it makes it a lot easier for the businesses to get that visibility, but also for the corporate Canada or government to work and connect with businesses. So I think that's the three biggest gaps that I find. And in all frank discussion as an Indigenous business, because it frustrates me, because I have to, as an Indigenous business, my job is to, hey man, hustle for nickels, and that's what I do. That's why I look for money. I look for opportunity, but I don't have, time. It's hard to run and manage myself across 3 or 4 different organizations. You can spend a lot of energy doing that. So as long as they're working together, as long as and the time is now, we have to have these things moving together, moving pieces, if that makes sense. So that's where I see the gaps. Sorry, I hope I answered the question.
Yeah, I hope you did. Actually, yeah, you did really well. Thank you, David. It's perfect timing because we're about to get kicked out here in 30 seconds. I just want to mention to anyone here, you guys can stick around after the plenary and you guys can break out into different breakout rooms to connect and talk more, because an hour never seems like enough, especially regarding this topic. We could talk forever about this.
Yeah, feel free to reach out to me directly. If you
can leave your email maybe in the group chat, so everyone can contact you if they have any more specific questions. Thank you again, David, and everyone that asked questions. Really good discussion. And yeah, thank you, everyone. We're going to be kicked out in any minute now. Thank you again. Come with us.